I was just checking with Sir as to how much time do I have to speak to you, and it reminds me of time when I was in MBA school, uh, wherein there was someone who had said that the average attention span of a human being to concentrate and do something is 40 minutes. And of course, the professor who told us this would then take lectures for 3 hours. So I will, of course, endeavor not to take it to 3 hours or anywhere close to that. I think, sir, what you said is really critical in context of what is it that industry expects, how is it that things will be different when you pass out. What I thought I might want to talk to you guys about is the fact that what is it that you can expect in 2 years of doing this course? If I were to put this bluntly, there are several, all of you would have graduated, graduation of course, best years of our life. Some of you are very fortunate to be here. There are others who will be in other management institutes. There are some who are studying more. There are some who, on account of a variety of reasons, have probably already started working, or those who are not pursuing education further. The blunt question I want to put in front of you is, 2 years hence, when you have passed out of this institute with a particular qualification, what is it that you expect to have that is far greater than a graduate with 2 years of experience in this country will have? So that's the question I wish to kind of leave with you. I also recognize an interesting fact, and that is pretty much in the time that you have been around, you have seen 2 world wars. Anything that the United States takes up is a world war, right? Because there is very little, as far as the US is concerned, there is very little of the world that exists outside of the US. So anything they do is a war, or take up is a global thing. So you've seen 2. You've seen the invasion of Iraq in 1991, or the invasion of Kuwait and then Iraq. You've seen the Afghan war. You've seen a 9/11, or you've heard of a 9/11. You've seen a global recession. You've seen the advent of the internet. You've seen, Facebook, Twitter, and all of those things that are there. So you've grown up at a time where the world has simply exploded in the last 20 years. Yeah. So there is very little in that sense that you haven't seen. Yeah. You've seen the dizzy heights when India really, the India Shining theme and everything that came along with it. Of course, what that government did was give us the theme, but lose it, lose being the government, which is what happened with a particular political party. So we got the theme, but we lost the government, and someone else came and then carried the theme forward. So we've heard India Shining, we've seen all of that. You've seen the dizzy heights that Indian entrepreneurs have got to. You've seen where Indian business has kind of gone to. You've seen one slowdown that has already taken place in the business world. You've seen a situation where increasing affluence is coming. So in the last 20 years, if there is one thing that has really changed the way we live our lives today, any idea what that is? The one thing that has changed the way we live our lives today? Is this. Yeah? 83% penetration in the country today. Yeah? So everybody, you can't imagine life without this, because you were born or you've grown up in a phase where this was there. I can request sirs to talk of times when there used to be queues and the waiting period to get a residence telephone at home was 3 years. Yeah, so the world has changed dramatically, and there is very little that you have not seen. So therefore, you're young, you're reasonably affluent, because you've grown up at a time when every consumer brand worth its salt is available, is present in India. You have a point of view. Most of you would have voted. Yeah, most of you, cast at least one vote, or at least you are eligible. If you haven't, make sure you cast it the next time you have an opportunity, because you represent what this country can do on a going forward basis. So you are growing up in a time when you lived a programmed life. Yeah? Slot, 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 slot. Do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. So you are much more engaged with your parents as well. At least I'm hoping most of you are. So what is it that you can be taught, which is something that you don't already know? So my first suggestion to you is that please recognize that these 2 years, it's more than likely that you won't be taught. The institute will help you to learn. Yeah, and there is a difference. By definition, teaching comes from one side, like this. To help learn, you should have the desire to want to learn yourself. Yeah? So that's the one big difference that it's likely that you will experience or come across when you kind of enter this. So, like I said, my suggestion is, your mind is like a parachute, right? It works only when it's open. Yeah? So make sure that you're here, you're with an open mind. Yeah? It's important to recognize that don't walk into anything thinking you know it. Also recognize the interesting dichotomy, which is that you're now encouraged to ask questions. You're now encouraged to kind of find answers, have a view, have a voice, and suddenly you enter an organization in the corporate world, and again you're being told what to do. Yeah. So again, you've gone from a box, opened it up, and suddenly you're going to come back into a box again. The key, therefore, is please recognize that you have to be adaptable and ready for change. Because that's the only thing that's constant. It will continue and it will happen in a manner that you cannot imagine. There was a recent study that was conducted around, what's the curriculum of engineering courses. Not in India, it happened in a couple of European countries. And what they found is technology is changing so fast that it replaces itself every 2 years. Which means, if you are in a 4-year engineering course, by the time you pass out, 50% of what you have learned is extinct. So please recognize the rate of change is going to be so dramatic that you have to be ready to embrace that change. And that change will come at every level. Now, the first step towards doing that is something that you will experience at B school when you are doing your MBA. Yeah? So things will be different. Depending on how you look at it, they may be harder, they may be tougher. You may not always have your way. Again, most of you have grown up at a time when you're used to having your way. Yeah? You've grown up, like I said, with interactive parents. Several of your parents may have told you at some point in time that you're not my child, you're my friend. Yeah? And I, of course, have a very different view on that. I believe that a parent is there because the child needs a parent and not a friend. Because when parents want to be friends with children, everything's fine. The problem is when children want to be friends with parents. And by definition, friends are somebody you can walk away from. Yeah? It's not permanent. You can just walk away. Yeah? You can gossip and badmouth a friend on Facebook. I can't imagine you wanting to do that to your parents. Or worse, your parents wanting to do that to you. So please recognize the subtle difference between when your parents actually say that, what do they say and what do they actually mean. Yeah? I'll just spend a couple of minutes, or a little more than a couple of minutes, talking to you about 3 or 4 sets of changes that I believe, or we believe as the Tata Group, will take place in the next 3 to 5 years. And therefore, what impact does it have on you for the next couple of years as you are pursuing this course? See, till malls came, till the mobile phone came, till any other consumer products came, The only exposure actually that we had towards things like consumer products was stuff like Coke and Pepsi, because that existed, that's been in existence for a while. So it was the Kirana store. Now, 20 years ago, it was inconceivable that a Kirana store would deliver when you called. Incidentally, it's a phenomenon only in India. Yeah, you can call any Kirana. Of course, there aren't Kirana stores in the US. They call them for some reason they call them mom and pop shops. I don't know why they call them that, but. So why is it that you think when you call in a Kirana store, he or she comes and delivers? Why is it that you're able to get vegetables on call? Why is it that sales that are of up to 40-50% are fairly common? Why do you think this is happening? And so therefore, who helps you survive in the market? So please recognize that everything that you do at the end of the day focuses only on the customer. Yeah? At the end of the day, the customer pays your salary. And it doesn't matter whether you're in HR or finance or operations or marketing or sales or the most abused word in management jargon, which is strategy. Yeah? So it doesn't matter. So what does that mean as far as customer or consumer is concerned? And of course there are subtle differences between the two, but we'll keep that aside for the time being. What that means is that when you're focusing on a marketing class, please recognize the importance of what customer-facing organizations actually do. Because customer-facing organizations fulfill demand. So you want to go and buy a pair of clothes. You go there and there is a Shopper Stop or a Pantaloon or a West Side, another brand, Trend, great company, good margins, great clothes. Yeah, that's available. So they are fulfilling a demand that you already have. Till this device, can everyone see this? What is this? It's not a mobile phone. It's an iPhone. It's a smartphone. Did anyone ask for this? Someone generated this demand. Yeah? So, especially for those of you who believe that you're entrepreneurs or want to go down the path of creating something of your own, please recognize that the customer is not related to you. They will not turn up in front of your store or in front of your business or give you business because of your first name or your last name. And nothing is better defined than that by the Tata Group. Because our last name is Tata, but our new chairman is going to be called this thing. Yeah? So no one is doing you a favor. Yeah? So please understand the whole thing of what consumers mean, what consumers do, what market research and insight is. Market research can be an extremely boring subject because you slice and dice, you do segmentation, you put categories, you put customers, you put them into various boxes, you call them bulls in China shops, there is a BCG 2x2 matrix, there are all kinds of fancy names. At some stage, sitting with your glass of Coke along with whatever you like to go with it, which could simply be ice, and you're sitting outside there and you're thinking, why the hell am I studying this now? Remember, that's what is going to pay your salary. So stuff like market research, consumer insights, what happens on the field is the most critical thing that this course can ever teach you or ever help you learn. All of us think that we want to do strategic work. Actually, and I say this with all honesty, I genuinely don't know what strategy means. Yeah? Because you ask 5 different people, you will get 5 different answers. People believe strategy is about, and you would know this better than me, sir. People believe strategy is about sitting in an air-conditioned office, taking decisions, traveling around the world, acquiring companies, and the like. Probably strategy is nothing to do with any of this. And like I said, I genuinely don't know what it means. But at the end of the day, strategy always aims at fulfilling or creating, again, a customer need. So whenever you have an opportunity, either you do field work, you do field trips, you go to organizations, you will do probably, summer training, internships. Make sure that you go and understand how work gets done in the company. Yeah? Be at the bottommost level. Yeah? So always, some of boys in the room may know this and forgive me if this is politically incorrect, but if you needed information on a girl whom you were pursuing, what was the best source of that information? Oh, her friend is higher in the hierarchy. I'm saying you are imagining that you know a friend. Its value at the bottom of the pyramid. So if that is your strategic goal, look at where you started. Real life is not very different. Yeah? The second thing, the second most abused word of the strategy is innovation. Yeah? So innovation is not about creating this product. We believe that innovation is about, the iPhone being created. The innovation is about saying there are multiple technologies that exist today, which is people want to speak on the phone, people want to access the net, people want to see their email, people want to get news, and people want to update their Facebook. Is there one device in which they can do all of this? The innovation is that. This is an outcome of that innovation. Yeah? So innovation again is not about fancy, big, lofty, massive ideas. The fact that you've created a small lab there called the RAIN lab, and some of you I'm sure will have a greater chance or greater access to be able to go and see that. Yeah? That's an example of innovation, not because it's a lab, but because it's created something that didn't exist before. So in terms of innovation, again, it's about thinking carefully about what is it I'm really trying to do. Am I integrating? Am I taking things apart and therefore saying I will fulfill needs differently? Whatever it may be. Now this is something that you will get insights through when you read, when you talk, when you interact. And that's the greatest benefit that you get at this level, something that you may not have had during graduation. Because you will get to hear from professionals or people, like Sir said, he's a visiting faculty and if he comes with the kind of experience that he does, it's up to you to nicholo whatever you can to know exactly, okay, so how does this work? How does that work? What is that? Yeah? Go back to being in some ways mentally 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. Ask questions. Don't think you know it. Yeah? Make sure that you ask questions at the right time. Because listen is the anagram of silent. So yeah, I've lived and worked in Singapore, I've lived and worked in the US. What is different? The main thing that's different is the culture. You don't think twice today about picking up your phone and calling up somebody on the cell phone. Yeah? That's the only number you know. You cannot do that in the US. When you're in the corporate world, you will call on the landline. If you don't get them, you will text them on the cell phone and then make a call. Partly because it's an invasion of privacy, and partly, of course, there is an economic reason. Any idea what it is? Incoming calls are charged. Now, this is something thing that culture teaches you. So if you have an opportunity to experience a different culture, again, sir was telling me that there are you have study tours or study trips that go, and you get to go to another country or experience another culture. Make sure you take it. Simply because in today's day and age, the world is without boundaries. It is not uncommon at all. I mean, at a point in time, if you had to see foreigners in India, you would have to see a Yash Chopra film. Yeah, the extras dancing at the back, or Karan Johar also. Doesn't matter. You see them everywhere now, and they are not here to do films. I mean, some of them are. Some of them learn Hindi also, by the way. But that's not why they're here. They're here because they're working here. Similarly, you may be in another country at some stage as a global citizen because work takes you there. Because work is always where the customer is. If you don't have that experience, understand, the only thing that's different is culture. Yeah? It's very unlikely that people will sit long hours and late hours after work is over in developed countries. In India, it's a norm. Now, whether it's right or it's wrong is a separate matter. Just recognize that the two are different. And that sense you will have only if you actually experience a global culture. It's different than going on vacation. Remember, other countries are will always welcome you when you go on vacation because you are contributing to their economy. They will be hostile when you go to work there because you are taking away their jobs. The two are different. Yeah? Fourth thing. 20 years ago, majority of your jobs were about, and I'm talking 20 years ago because cell phones didn't really exist then. There's a factory, the factory churned out a product, there was a bank, the bank rendered services. The job in that sense was not very difficult in terms of saying there was not too much competition the way it existed today. There were a set of norms. If you sweated the asset, if you got maximum value of your production and you sold it, your job was done. Today's day and age, if you look at top jobs, and sir will testify to that as well, where do top people actually spend their time? They are either with the government lobbying for a particular proposal, they are trying to make sure that unrest don't get out of hand, the tragic case of what happened at Maruti. They are trying to fight off people who are constantly coming up on climate change, saying pollution, blah, 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 blah. What kind of planet are you leaving for us, and the likes. Greenpeace and people like that. They are spending time talking to their employees because they believe the level of disengagement is high. People are jittery, they want, young folks such as yourself. You want a high salary, and you walk in on Monday and you want to be CEO by Friday. Just imagine the CEO is spending his or her time doing this. But this is not what he or she was qualified for. This was never taught in B school. So two things. There are some things that you have to learn which are not taught. They come only from experience. Yeah? Now you can decide if you want that experience. Experience is a term that we use, when we learn something by failing in doing it ourselves. Yeah, it was like, Dhoni says when we played in Australia and in England and we lost. Yeah, it was an experience. Experience bullshit. But, so experience is something that you gain. You can either have it from someone else because they learned, or you can wait to fail and learn it yourself. So if someone else is talking to you about this experience of learning what is not taught in a syllabus, it is something you should be ready for. Because as you enter the corporate world, you will increasingly spend time having to do things that you may not have studied about. Because this world is changing. Things will be dramatically different. And they will continue to change. Sure, there is a slowdown. Sure, things will slow down. There's no doubt. But please recognize that for someone who's willing to work hard, for someone who spent their time reasonably thinking through what is it that is important for them, there is never a shortage of a job or a business opportunity. My request to you is, don't spend these 2 years thinking about where will I finally get placed and how will I pay off my loan that I've taken in order to join this institute. I'm not denying the importance of having to pay it back. Of course you have to. Of course there are pressures. We all face pressures. It's nothing new. You faced these pressures even when you were young. You competed even when you were in school. There was a time when 92% was seen as not sufficient. It's just that it's translating itself into money now. Please recognize that if you have to be in life for the long run, you can't compromise on things that happen short term. So if your whole orientation is around, I have to get a day zero company or a day one slot on campus and I have to get placed in that particular company and I must have a CTC of whatever number you have in mind, you've got that wrong. Several other things I've only been suggesting and advising, but this I will say with a degree of certainty. You've got it wrong. Because everything that you came here to do, you've compromised because you've decided eventually where you want to end up. Please remember, the job, the career, these things eventually take care of themselves. It may not happen in your first job. It may happen in your second job, your third job. Your first venture might fail, your second will succeed. But if you start with this whole thing of, this is where I have to get to, this is what I, whatever, and I'm talking specifically in terms of placement. It's good to have a vision in terms of what is it that you want to do. But if that's the orientation that you're starting out with, that is a problem. Because you will not get there, trust me. Because you set your sights so low. By saying that ultimately I need to get this whatever. Please recognize again that job is your iPhone. It's an outcome. Someone didn't set out to say I need to create the iPhone. Someone set out to say I need to integrate various things that people do. Hence the iPhone is an outcome. It may have been something else for all you care. And that's what all great innovations, technology, inventions are all about. You never set out to find something. You just made sure that you prepared to fulfill a need that you felt or you believed was important. Yeah? So please learn hard, play harder, have loads of fun. Make sure that you strike a balance in what you do. Everything in moderation is great. So again, please recognize that you're at a stage where really the world is waiting to welcome you. 50% of the world now actually lives in urban cities. It's the first time in the history of mankind that 50% of people now live in what we call as urban cities. Yeah? So it's a great time to be alive. You may not have the best job eventually, but it's still a great time to be alive. Never forget that. Because as long as you acknowledge that, that dream job will come. It's not going anywhere, it will come. So, there is no such thing as a lost chance. There is no such thing as spilt milk. The rains may be delayed, but there is plenty of milk. There are plenty of cows. So, nothing ever ends. There's something that I saw in one of the rooms next door which said that it's never too late to start. So, whenever you decide you want to start, this is the time to be able to do it. So ladies and gentlemen, future CEOs and whatever you want to be of tomorrow, thank you very much.